Back. So now I want to go back into the ASISA categories and just show you some more information. There's a first part to this video, so if you haven't, go and check that out. It's on ASISA categories specifically, and we had looked at the information for the multi-asset high equity category. Showed you a lot of the functionality that exists in here. Just want to dig a little bit deeper into this. We'll use another category, a smaller one, because there's a machine learning algorithm behind this that can take quite a while to run. So using a smaller number of funds will help us with that. But first, let's just look at some of the functionality inside here. So again, if we click on the information button, you can see all the information on here. So one of the things that I didn't discuss in the previous video was actually the ability to, when you're looking at these risk return scatter plots, is to click on or tap on the screen in your case to figure out which is that, any of these specific funds, if you wanted to put a label on it. In other words, which fund gave you the lowest return, which fund gave you the highest return, which fund had the highest volatility, which fund had the lowest volatility. So you could try and figure out, some of these funds, behind here that otherwise you can't really see. And again, the same for the active return. You could click on that or tap on, on any of those dots to figure out which fund that was. Okay, so that's one of the additional functionality that exists there. Let's just go and look at the top here. We've got two more pieces of functionality. One is this share icon, and what it will do is take a lot of those charts and allow you to copy them either into your photos directory. You're going to have to give it permission, and you can see there's 13 charts or tables that it will save to your device's photo library, or you could copy those and then you've got them on your clipboard, or share them in some other way. So there's various ways that you could use that information. So that's that share icon. The one next to it is, if you recognize this, it's a dendrogram, and if you click on it, it'll actually do this principal component analysis. So it's actually showing you that the first three principal components within this ASISA category, how much of the variability each of those principal components explains. So the first one explains 23%, which is a high number. Second one, 20%, also a very high number. So there's a lot of variability being explained by these first three principal components. And then you've got, for each fund, the projection out into those principal components, as well as it also does the principal component analysis. So there's two ways to imagine the sort of sample as well as the dimensions or features. The first way is each fund is a sample, and then every month is a feature. And the second way is each month is a sample and each fund is a feature. So you can slice and dice this in two different ways. Now there's a whole bunch of additional functionality that exists here. But first, let's just click on one of these funds here. And what you've got is that cluster dendrogram. And it's showing you the relationship between those funds. So if you now read this, this essentially is showing you how two funds will cluster together. The distance represents the level of similarity or difference between the funds. So these two funds, even though they're clustered together, they're closer to each other than they are to any other fund or any other cluster. But they're quite far from each other, so very distinctive funds, these two, whereas these funds are all clustering very close together, so very similar. So it gives you this unsupervised learning algorithm that tells you about the structure of the underlying ASISA category in this case. So you get a good idea of which funds are similar and which funds are very different. Now you can see here that it's using 3 years of monthly return. This again is something that you could come in here into the settings and change. So if you scroll down a little bit here, you're going to see, let's have a look, dendrogram type and number. I need to find it. principal component analysis here. The number of years, I could change that to 5 years. Again, go back to the ASISA category. I'd have to run it again. So I'd run the principal component analysis again, and now it's using 5 years of data. You can see it's updated that to 5 years. Okay, so you can look at it in terms of the funds being samples and the dates being features, but if you come down here and click on it, now you've got the dates. So for this specific ASISA category, so the IB short term, it's telling you which months were similar to each other and which months were very different. So there could be months where something was happening in the interest rate market. If you know the market quite well, you might know what was happening within the market. So that's by clicking on these rows here. You've also got the ability to actually see those projections that were in the previous table. You can actually see each of the funds out in those projections. So again, by clicking on it, you can see which funds, how they were projected out onto those principal components, and therefore what makes them similar. Here's 2 funds that are fairly similar versus 2 funds that might be very different. And you can see that with principal component 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and 3 versus 2 in this case. You've also got the ability to see this in 3 dimensions. So you can actually just hold down and scroll around here to actually see that. And if you wanted to, you could show the labels for those. It's fairly small, so you'd have to zoom in, but you can see that it's put the labels there. Okay, so that's that icon there. This one does a k-means clustering, which is another machine learning algorithm, and you can again choose how many clusters you want by going into the settings and looking for the k-means clustering now. So let's go down here. We've got k nearest neighbors there. There we go, number of k-means clusters. So in this case, I've chosen 3 clusters. Again, it's an unsupervised machine learning algorithm. You just specify how many clusters, and it goes and looks at the data to see which funds it would put in the same cluster. So you can see cluster 1 only has 2 funds here, M&G and Truffle. Cluster 2 has 4 funds, and the third cluster is the bulk of the funds here that are probably all similar to each other in some ways. So that's that second. So that's the principal component analysis, the k-means clustering. And this final one, I can't do on the simulator, but you can do on your iPhone or iPad, really just projects those funds into your space in the real world. So it uses your camera and it projects those so you can actually walk around and view those. So I can't demonstrate this here. I'd need to demonstrate it on the actual device. So that's the additional functionality I wanted to show you that's available for ASISA categories. If you had to try and do that for a category like the high equity category that has many funds, this is going to take quite a while to run. So that first part runs quite quickly, this principal component analysis, but the hierarchical clustering dendrogram, that will take quite long to run. So you just have to be patient and wait for it. It's going to do that for 200 funds or whatever, has as much data as you're looking for. That's it for this video. Thanks, bye.